administration moves forward with its agenda, some critics are casting a wary eye out west. A headline in the Los Angeles Times reading, "Make America California Again? That's the Biden plan." Let's talk about it with our panel. John Cox, former California gubernatorial candidate and founder of Change CA. Leslie Marshall, talk radio host and Fox News contributor, and Fox Business anchor David Asman. Wonderful to have you. John, could I start with you? This idea of taking policies in California. Apparently, Governor Newsom had said that California's progressivism is the roadmap to success for the new administration. Do you agree?
No. I can't imagine that, Dana, and thanks for having me on, by the way. You know, this state is a wonderful state to live in, great weather, great natural beauty, but the worst management in the country. If you just look at the quality of life in this state, the highest cost of living, the highest poverty rate, the highest taxes, the highest housing costs, homelessness is rampant in a crisis situation. We don't have enough electricity, we don't have enough water. And on top of that, now we have the pandemic management, which has been a disgrace. We have small businesses that are literally being crushed. Our kids have not gone to school. They're not involved in activities. And now the vaccine distribution is an absolute mismanagement. If Gavin Newsom were the head of a major corporation, he would have been fired months ago. When you're in a hole, Dana, the first rule is to stop digging. And that's why I think this recall that's going on right now is going to be successful. And I'm going to be there because I've run a small business for 40 years, and I just can't stand watching the epic mismanagement that's gone on in this state.
Leslie, I'll get you a chance to respond. Here's what the Times writes in L.A. There is no place the incoming administration is leaning on more heavily for inspiration in setting a progressive policy agenda. Your response?
Well, it depends on what you're looking at. If you're looking at climate, if you're looking at workers' rights, if you're looking at health care or high-speed rail, which Joe Biden, even when he wasn't president, has always been a fan of, then yes, you would look to California. But it's not going to make the United States California. There are issues like raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Florida has done that, and that's certainly not a blue state. Look, with regard to, people saying, look, people are fleeing California. Last year, we had 480,000, almost 500,000 people move into this state. And if you look at the top 30 cities in the United States, there's a mass exodus from all of them across the country. And part of the reason is because individuals who are affected, especially minorities, disproportionately by this virus, COVID-19, both physically and financially due to job loss, are leaving bigger cities because all these larger cities, these 30 top cities, most expensive cities to live in, they're moving somewhere else, sometimes in the state, sometimes out of the state with other family members until they can find another job. So, it's not all California that's all bad. California exemplifies a lot of what we're seeing in other states. The haves have more and the have-nots have less.
David Asman, I want to show you this. The Californians in power today. Kamala Harris, of course, one of the most famous as vice president. You have Janet Yellen, Jennifer Granholm, Xavier Becerra, Mayorkas, and, of course, Pelosi. But that's a lot of economic policy-making power at the top there, David.
Well, and it's all pointed in one direction. I want to agree with Leslie. Leslie, I agree with you 100% that in fact, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. What that does is it squeezes the middle class, and the middle class, and particularly middle class businesses, small businesses, are being killed in California, as they are in these other Democratic-run cities where taxes are very high, regulations are very high. The biggest corporations can eat most of those expenses. In fact, Silicon Valley has been doing so well during the pandemic that California had a windfall tax profit of an extra $20 billion that it wasn't expecting from Silicon Valley. So you have the Silicon Valley island growing enormously, while middle-class businesses, whether they're restaurants or anybody in the leisure business, is getting killed in California. Those tend to be small and middle-sized companies. They're either dying and changing professions or moving out entirely. Then you have other people like Elon Musk and Palantir and other companies leaving for Texas and Florida and places with zero state income tax and far fewer regulations. So if the United States is going to look like California, you're going to have a squeezing of the middle class. You're going to have a larger disparity between the middle class and the richest of the rich. And you're going to have a lot of people leaving the country, going back to Ireland and places with lower taxes.
Well, you both said a lot there. I was looking at this two-track jobs recovery piece in the Wall Street Journal that found that lockdown states have lost more jobs than the states that chose to stay partially open or even fully open during the pandemic. John Cox, what do you think about what this portends for the U.S., if indeed this is the trend under a Biden administration?
Well, I think California has benefited, as Leslie and David said, from the great weather and the fact that wealthy people can do well out here, but not the middle class. David's point is right on. The high taxes, the high cost of housing. You know, I'm in the housing business. I can build housing in the Midwest for 1/4 or 1/5 of what it costs out here, which means that when young people get older, they have to figure out where they can best live. And they're going to be moving away from California. And you're right, the pandemic has made a big transition from the big cities because people can work from home, and I think that's going to be a lasting legacy of the pandemic. People are going to move away from the big cities. They're going to go into more rural areas. I think California can still be attractive because it's a wonderful place to live. It's got great weather. We've got all these baby boomers that are retiring. They're going to want to retire at places that are enjoyable weather-wise, but they've got to have a livable place. It's got to be reasonably affordable. California can be that if it gets the right management. I don't know how long these Silicon Valley companies are going to stay here and keep paying the taxes and keep footing the bill.
Yeah, you can't find a U-Haul in California to take you out of the state. Leslie, maybe a last question to you. John said that he thinks that the recall effort against Governor Newsom will be successful. What do you think?
Look, when you have individuals who vote for someone, whether they're Democrat or Republican, and I hated this when it happened with Gray Davis, when they recalled him. Look, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he was governor, and what happened at the end of the day? California was worse off than if they had stuck with Gray Davis. If you recall an individual, although you can, you are spitting in the face of all the voters who voted to elect that individual. That's what happened before. It was disastrous for California, and I fear that it's disastrous again, especially during a pandemic, as COVID-19 is that we're living with
in the meantime.
It's
too much spitting going on in politics.
Make it quick, David. Go ahead.
I was just going to say there's a lot of spitting going on in politics, and we got to stop that spitting. I think I again agree with Leslie on that point. But,
indeed.
Yeah,
it means who you replace them with. I think that's the big thing.
We could talk about this for hours, but we've got to go. John, Leslie, and David, thank you so much.
It's like the version of the 5.
Great discussion.
Thank you.
Really interesting.